So the title of my presentation is Harvesting the Power of Big Data While Preserving Privacy. My name is Nascimento. I'm currently an associate professor with the soon-to-be School of Engineering and Technology of UWT. This is the new name of the Institute of Technology, so pleasure to introduce you to it. I'm originally from Brazil. I lived all over the planet. I was in Japan for many, many years where I took my PhD. I worked there as a research scientist. I went back to Brazil, have been visiting several different universities all over the world, and now I'm in the wonderful city of Tacoma. Here we go. So we are all very concerned how our private data can be used. Be this data, maybe your social data, or maybe your electronic health records, or maybe even your genomic data. However, despite this fear, there is actually a huge benefit in sharing your private data for good purposes. For example, this shows a research that happened a couple of years ago, well, actually 2 years ago, where scientists, they managed to find a correlation between a drug for your heart called beta blocker and ovarian cancer patient survival. And they found this correlation by going over the records of 1,400 patients. Another example that's interesting to point out is this research here where researchers, they managed to find a correlation between a well-known drug for heartburn, omeprazole, and heart attacks. And they managed to find this correlation by going over millions of patient records. No experiment was doing. Everything was done on data. So there is a clear benefit of sharing your data. However, well, we are not so happy about doing that. So one possible solution is, well, let's anonymize the data. Let's exclude every information that can be used to find out who you are. Your social security number, maybe your name, maybe your date of birth. Well, unfortunately, that's not enough. We have techniques to de-anonymize data. So here, I'm showing to you a study that was published a while ago in Science, where researchers, they managed to de-anonymize DNA data. By correlating it with some publicly available data sets, they managed to find out the first, last name, and address of the people who donated their DNA for research. That's certainly kind of scary, but it's not the only case. The Netflix challenge is also very interesting. Netflix released data of over 500,000 users in order to use this data to improve their recommendation systems. The data was supposedly anonymous. Of course, in a matter of weeks, it was completely de-anonymized by correlating the reviews in this data with reviews that appear elsewhere in the internet. Well, that's pretty bad. However, we do have techniques that allow us to kind of reconcile those two conflicting goals, using the data but keep it private at the same time. Think of this picture here. Imagine that there is a trusted party. We all trust this person here. Think of your preferred politician. And then we are going to do the following. We are going to get our data and give to this trusted party. And the party will do whatever computation is needed. And we will announce the result to everyone or to the party that needs it. Clearly, this solution is private because we trust this party, and the party is never going to announce our data to anyone else. It captures, in essence, what we want to achieve here. But what's the problem with this solution? I mean, we don't trust anyone, right? I mean, we don't trust our preferred politician. So the problem here is that we need to trust this person with our data, and we're not happy about that. However, cryptography, this branch of computer science that studies mathematical techniques for encrypting data, has techniques where you can actually distribute this trusted authority among several parties that you do not trust completely. And as far as a majority of them are okay, are honest, your whole solution will work exactly as in the previous scenario. This area is called secure multi-party computation. It was discovered in the 80s. The discovery of it got a Turing Award, the Nobel Prize for Computer Science. And it works somehow like this, and I apologize, this is going to be a very superficial explanation. The idea is that you apply some mathematical transformation in your data, and you split it into something called shares. The shares are done in a way that they do not reveal any information about the data. Okay. However, and then we spread these shares to the parties that are going to do the computation. So they do not learn anything about your data yet. However, the shares do allow the players to do computations over them, and by exchanging messages, they can actually obtain the final computation by just working over the shares and exchanging some messages. At the end, when they have the final result, they recombine it, and magically, they get the final result that they have been interested in without ever directly accessing the data. There are general solutions that show that any function that is computable in principle can be computed in this secure way. However, those results are theoretical in nature, and they are not efficient at all. We need to find solutions that work for real-sized data sets for real problems. And that's what I have been doing here with our students at UWT. We have been developing solutions that can compute on private data and apply it to social networks, apply it to discover, to do profile estimation of people, apply it to healthcare, apply it to genomic information processing. And among the many results that we have obtained here, I would like to point out a few of those to you. So this result here appeared in a leading journal in our field. It was done with undergrads, students here at UWT, and where we managed to provide protocols that are privacy preserving for several machine learning tasks. And our results are order of magnitude better than the state of the art. The leading student researcher here, Stacy, is now a PhD student at Georgia Tech with a full scholarship. This is another interesting result that we got here. So we managed to estimate your personality, age, and gender based on text and data, but text and a picture of you. But everything is done privately. So the classifier never actually sees your text, never sees your face, but it still can find out that you are helpful, cautious, inner-directed, critical, excitable, strict, shrewd, and this is actually the estimation of Churchill's personality based on one of his speeches. The leading student researcher here, Cici Wang, she works for Google now in Mountain View, and engaging undergraduate research was a major component of her getting this important position. And how far are we from using this in practice? This is an education bill that was recently proposed by Marco Rubio, where they want to make sure that we are able to monitor how our students are doing and how our teachers are doing, but without violating their privacy. And they explicitly mention in the bill secure multi-party computation. I did my PhD in this area in 2004, many years ago, and at that time, I only used a computer for text, for word processing. It was everything theoretical, just theorems, proofs, mathematical statements. But now, these have become reality. And I never thought that that would be possible at all. Just to conclude, working with undergrads is a wonderful experience, and it's transformative for the professors and for the students. I supervised a couple of students, PhD students in my life. None of them actually ended up being a professor. They're doing well. But my undergrads that I have worked with them, 3 of them actually became professors. Last year, one became a professor at Harvard, an assistant professor of electrical engineering at Harvard from last September. So it's an amazing experience on a professional and personal level, and I would like to tell to every student here, if you are interested in doing that, find out a professor, and to have a professor here, don't see that as a waste of time. It's a wonderful experience. Thank you very much.